The first time I saw Chandler, I was convinced he belonged to another world, a world where everything was easy, golden, and beautifully arranged. I had no intention of stepping into it. I only wanted one thing that afternoon, a simple power outlet to save my dying phone before my entire day fell apart. I should have walked out of the cafe and kept my life the way it was, quiet, small, predictable. But fate has a strange sense of humor, and sometimes all it takes to derail a carefully built routine is the glow of a charging icon and the smile of a stranger who has no idea he is about to change everything. I was running on fumes that day. My phone battery had died at the worst possible moment, right when I needed it to submit a time-sensitive report for work. My laptop had been drained during the morning meeting, my portable charger was gone from my bag, and every outlet in the crowded cafe was taken. It felt like the universe was nudging me toward a breakdown. I stood there helplessly, watching the screen fade to black like a door slamming shut. That was when I saw him. Chandler was seated alone at a small corner table, the sunlight falling directly onto his face as if someone up there had decided he needed perfect lighting at all times. His hair was messy in the way that takes effort to look effortless. He had earbuds in, fingers tapping lightly to whatever he was listening to. But what caught my eye was the outlet next to him. Blessed, untouched, glowing with the kind of salvation you only appreciate when you are seconds away from digital death. I hesitated. He looked like the kind of guy who had 100 friends, a full social calendar, and a smile that came naturally. I was the opposite. I kept my world small, quiet, safe. But desperation makes people brave. I walked toward him, rehearsing the question in my head so many times it lost meaning. When I finally reached his table, he looked up, pulled out one earbud, and gave me a smile that felt like warmth spreading across my chest. "Hey," he said. His voice was open, curious. "Can I help you? Can I borrow your power outlet for a bit? My phone died. I promise it will only take a minute." He blinked as if surprised that I chose something so ordinary to break into his world. Then he grinned. "Of course. Come sit. Looks like you are having a tough day." I sat, and that was how it began. The moment I plugged in my phone and the screen flickered back to life, Chandler leaned back in his chair and gave me the kind of look you reserve for someone you are trying to figure out gently, without pressure, without expectation. It was disarming. "Rough morning?" he asked. "Rough week," I confessed before I could stop myself. He laughed softly. "Same." And just like that, a simple exchange turned into a conversation. A conversation turned into laughter. Laughter turned into connection so natural, so fluid, it scared me. I was not used to feeling seen, especially not by someone like him. He told me he was studying film production. He worked part-time at the theater downtown. He loved running in the mornings, hated pineapple on pizza, and believed that every person he met came into his life for a reason, even the messy ones. I told him small pieces of myself. Not everything. Not the parts one kept hidden. But enough that he listened, nodded, asked more. He made me feel like my thoughts mattered. No one had done that in a long time. We talked until my phone hit 100% and my coffee had gone cold. When I stood up to leave, thinking this would be the end of whatever strange moment the universe had gifted me, he surprised me again. "Hey, Finian," he said, and my name sounded different coming out of his mouth, softer somehow. "Do you come here often?" "Not really." "Why?" "Because I think I would like to see you again." My heart tripped over itself. People did not say things like that to me. Not handsome strangers with warm smiles and casual confidence. "I think I would like that too," I said before fear could drag me backward. He gave me his number. I walked out of the cafe feeling like the world had tilted slightly, revealing a new angle of light. I did not know then that I would fall for him in a matter of weeks. I did not know that every little detail about him would carve itself into my memory. I did not know that love would sneak up on me quietly through shared coffee cups, early morning texts, movie marathons, and long walks where neither of us said much, but everything important was spoken in silence. But before love, there was fear. Fear of liking someone too much. Fear of wanting something I was not sure I deserved. Fear of stepping into a world where vulnerability was not optional. Chandler did not push. He waited. He let me come closer at my own pace, even though he was capable of speeding ahead without hesitation. One evening, we were walking home after watching a late movie, when Chandler stopped suddenly. The streetlight overhead cast a soft glow on his face. He looked at me like he was trying to decide something. "Finian, can I ask you something personal?" I swallowed. "Sure." "Why do you always act like you are afraid to reach back when I reach out?" My breath caught. He had noticed. Of course he had. I told him the truth, the small truth, not the whole one. "I am just not used to someone choosing me." He stepped closer. "You do not have to earn being chosen. You just have to show up. And you do. Every time." We did not kiss that night. But something shifted. A door opened. Days became weeks. Weeks became something deeper. Chandler had a way of turning ordinary moments into something warm, something meaningful. He remembered the things I said, even when they slipped my mind. He sent me morning messages, even when he was late for class. He defended me when his friends teased me too hard. He walked me home when it rained, even though he only had one umbrella. One night, during a thunderstorm that rattled my apartment windows, he called. "The storm is bad," he said. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, just loud. Hard to sleep." "I am coming over." "You don't have to," I started, but he cut me off gently. "I want to. Let me be there." Minutes later, he was at my door, drenched from the rain, hair sticking to his forehead. He looked both worried and relieved at the same time. I let him in. He stepped inside like he had always belonged there. We sat on the floor, our backs against the couch, listening to the storm. At some point, he reached out and laced his fingers with mine. I did not pull away. "You make me feel safe," I whispered without thinking. He leaned his head against mine. "You make me feel seen." Thunder rolled outside, but inside everything felt calm. Looking back, I realized that was the night things changed. That was when the space between us closed entirely. But fate was not done with us yet, because love, no matter how gentle, always brings its own storms. It happened 2 weeks later. We were walking out of the same cafe where we had first met, laughing about something ridiculous Chandler had said, when someone called his name sharply from behind us. "Chandler." We turned. A man stood there, tall, tense, his expression a mix of shock and something bitter. Chandler froze. His smile disappeared. "Evan," he said quietly. Evan looked at me, then at Chandler, and his jaw tightened. "You didn't tell me you were seeing someone." I felt Chandler tense beside me. Something twisted in my chest. "We aren't," he started, but Evan cut him off. "You never changed. Did you always jumping into something new before you even leave the old behind?" Chandler flinched. The air turned thick. I looked at him. Chandler would rarely show fear, but right then, I saw it in his eyes. A history I knew nothing about. A wound I had never touched. I stepped closer gently, but with purpose. "Is everything okay?" I asked. Chandler opened his mouth, but no words came out. Evan scoffed. "So this is your new distraction. Cute." Something stung inside me, not because of what Evan said, but because Chandler was standing there crumbling under the weight of something unspoken. I took a slow breath. "Chandler, you don't owe anyone an explanation, least of all someone who walks up and tries to humiliate you in public." His eyes widened slightly. Evan stiffened. "You don't even know him," Evan muttered. "Maybe not," I said, "but I know enough to see you are hurting him. And that's not love. That's possession." Chandler looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time in a new light. A softer light. A braver one. Evan shook his head and left with a frustrated exhale. The moment he was gone, Chandler sagged slightly, like he had been holding himself up for too long. He whispered my name. "Finian." I turned to him. He looked haunted. "I am sorry," he said softly. "I didn't want you to see that part of my life." I stepped closer. "You don't have to hide anything from me. Not the easy parts. Not the painful parts." He blinked fast. "You don't know what you were saying." "I know exactly what I am saying." He exhaled shakily. "I don't want to drag you into my mess." I touched his arm. "Then let me choose. Let me stay." Chandler looked at me like I was giving him something he had been denied for a long time, a chance to be flawed and still be wanted. He whispered, barely audible, "I don't want to lose you." "You won't." And for the first time, he pulled me into his arms and held me like I was something fragile and precious, something he was afraid to break, but even more afraid to let go. That was the moment I realized something undeniable. I had not just borrowed his outlet that day. I had stepped into his chaos, his past, his heart. And I was not planning to leave. The days that followed Evan's sudden reappearance were complicated, not because Chandler wavered. He never wavered, but because I was seeing parts of him I had never encountered before. Shadows in the corners of his smile, hesitations in the way he held my hand, flinches at sudden noises that reminded him of someone else. I had thought falling for someone meant butterflies and easy laughter, but with Chandler, love was a storm, and I was learning to weather it. He was quiet for a few days, though not distant. We continued our routine: coffee shop mornings, library afternoons, long evening walks. But there was a subtle tension beneath the surface, like the calm before thunder. I tried to talk about it once, cautiously, testing the waters. "Chandler, about Evan." I began, my voice tentative. Do you want to talk about him?" He shook his head, brushing a hand through his damp hair after a morning run. "Not yet. I need some space to figure things out, Finian." I nodded, swallowing the disappointment that had nothing to do with him. Space. That was fair. I could respect that. But it was hard, watching someone so vibrant hold a piece of himself behind a locked door. I wanted to pick the lock, but I couldn't force it. Instead, I focused on the small things. I brought him coffee exactly how he liked it, black with a hint of cinnamon, and left it on his doorstep when I knew he had a busy day. I laughed at his terrible puns over text. I left notes tucked into his bag with dumb doodles and reminders that he was liked. Little by little, I realized that showing up mattered more than asking him to open up. And slowly, he did. It started one evening when we were sprawled across his living room floor, textbooks and notebooks scattered around us for a group project we had somehow convinced ourselves to do together. He sighed, leaning back on his elbows. "I hate that he's still part of my story," he confessed quietly. I frowned. "Chandler." He waved me off, a frustrated laugh escaping his lips. "No, let me finish. I mean, Evan, he wasn't just a fling. He was my first serious relationship. And when he left, it left me messy. Scared. I didn't know if I wanted to open up to anyone again. And now, here you are, making me feel things I thought I couldn't anymore." I reached for his hand instinctively. His eyes met mine, and I saw it. The vulnerability, the raw truth that he had hidden even from himself. "I'm not going anywhere," I said softly. "I don't care about the past, Chandler. I care about right now, about us." His lips quirked into a small, tentative smile, and for the first time in days, the tension around him melted. "You really mean that?" "Every word," I whispered. That night, we stayed up talking, just talking, for hours. He told me stories from high school, from his first trips to the city, from moments that shaped him into the person I had fallen for. And I told him about my own past, my fears, my awkward first crushes, my heartbreaks. Sharing these fragments of ourselves made us feel closer, like puzzle pieces finally clicking into place. The first kiss came naturally, not in a storm or dramatic moment, but while we were sitting on the edge of his couch, exhausted from laughing at a movie we had both pretended to hate. I had leaned my head on his shoulder, and he had turned slightly, brushing a stray hair from my forehead. Our eyes met. His hand found mine. And then, without thought, without hesitation, our lips met. It was soft, electric, and perfectly imperfect. A kiss that spoke of hope, of new beginnings, of trust earned and given freely. From that night onward, our relationship deepened in ways I hadn't expected. We became inseparable, but in a way that didn't suffocate. We gave each other space, laughed until our stomachs hurt, argued about nothing and everything, and held each other through the mundane and the extraordinary alike. Yet life has a way of reminding you that love isn't always easy. About a month later, Chandler invited me to his family dinner. I was nervous. I hadn't met his family, and the thought of encountering them while being the guy in his life terrified me. But I wanted to show up, to be a part of his world fully. The dinner was at his childhood home, a modest house tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. His parents were warm and welcoming, his younger sister energetic and curious. I tried to stay relaxed, but my hands were clammy and my voice slightly shaky. "You must be Finian," his mother said, embracing me gently. "Chandler talks about you all the time." I laughed nervously. "I hope it's good things." "All good things," she replied with a wink. The evening went well until Chandler's father, a tall man with a commanding presence but kind eyes, leaned forward. "So how long have you two been dating?" Chandler looked at me, a flicker of mischief in his eyes. "A couple of months," he said confidently. I swallowed. Yeah, my heart raced. I wasn't used to talking about us out loud, in front of other people, like it was real. His father nodded slowly. "Good. You make him happy, I can see that." I felt a surge of relief. Chandler's hand found mine under the table, squeezing gently. That small gesture grounded me, reminded me that I was not an outsider. I belonged. Still, despite the warmth, I could feel Chandler's tension whenever Evan was mentioned, or when a topic drifted toward past relationships. I knew we had work to do, both individually and together. And then, fate intervened again. One rainy afternoon, I was walking to Chandler's apartment to study together when I saw him. Evan, standing across the street, drenched but unmistakable. Our eyes met briefly, and he smirked knowingly. I froze. My phone buzzed with a text from Chandler, "Be there in 10. I crossed the street carefully, trying to avoid Evan, but it was impossible. He stepped into my path, blocking me. "Finian," he said, voice low and dangerous. "We need to talk." I swallowed hard. "There's nothing to talk about," I said firmly, but my heart raced. "About Chandler?" Evan asked, stepping closer. "You really think you can just waltz into his life and erase what we had?" I took a deep breath, gathering courage I didn't know I possessed. "Chandler isn't yours," I said steadily. "He's his own person. And I hesitated. I love him. I won't let anyone, not even you, make him doubt that." Evan's eyes flashed with something, anger, surprise, and for a moment, I thought he might lunge. But then he stepped back, shaking his head. "You're braver than I thought," he muttered. "Don't mess it up." And just like that, he was gone, disappearing into the rain. When Chandler arrived, he looked at me with a mixture of awe and concern. "Are you okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, but Evan, he's still a problem." Chandler smiled softly, brushing a wet strand of hair from my face. "He'll come and go. What matters is us, Finian. Always us." His words, simple and unwavering, filled me with a warmth that nothing could extinguish. I leaned into him, letting the rain soak my hair, letting his presence shield me from the storm outside. Life settled into a rhythm after that. Evan no longer appeared, at least not directly. Chandler and I navigated our relationship carefully, aware of the past, but not defined by it. We celebrated milestones quietly. First-month anniversaries, shared dinners, movie nights turned into cozy sleepovers. We learned each other's quirks, each other's fears, each other's dreams. Chandler's film projects flourished, and I became his unofficial assistant, helping him brainstorm ideas, edit scripts, and even act in a few of his short films. I realized that love, when nurtured properly, didn't consume. It complemented, it built, it inspired. One evening, we were lying on his rooftop, watching the city lights flicker below, and he turned to me, his hand resting over mine. "Finian, can I ask you something?" I smiled, already knowing the answer he wanted. "Always." He took a deep breath. "Do you ever think about the day we met? How a dead phone led to all of this?" I laughed softly. "I do. I think about how desperate I was for an outlet and how you changed everything without even trying." He smiled, eyes glinting with mischief and affection. It's funny how life works. One small moment, and suddenly, everything else falls into place. I squeezed his hand. "I wouldn't change a thing." Chandler leaned in, resting his forehead against mine. "Neither would I." And for the first time in a long time, I truly believed it. That love could be both simple and profound. That fate could be mischievous, but kind. That one borrowed power outlet could lead to a lifetime of shared mornings, whispered confessions, and quiet, unshakable happiness. We stayed on that rooftop until the city slept, our hearts beating in tandem, knowing that whatever storms came our way, we would face them together. Because in the end, love wasn't about avoiding the rain. It was about finding someone who would dance with you in it, holding your hand through every thunderclap, every lightning strike, and every quiet, golden sunrise that followed. The following weeks were a dance between ordinary life and moments of extraordinary connection. Chandler and I found rhythm in our shared world. Coffee shop mornings became sacred rituals. The same spot by the window where our story had begun now felt like home. We left notes in each other's backpacks, texts filled with inside jokes, and little surprises that made the other laugh in the middle of a stressful day. Our laughter became the soundtrack of our lives. One Friday evening, Chandler surprised me. He had a small box in his hand, wrapped hastily in brown paper. "What's this?" I asked, curious. "Open it," he said, grinning like a boy who had just discovered something magical. Inside was a small notebook filled with sketches of us, our coffee shop, the rooftop, the late-night movies, the little moments nobody else would see. He had drawn us holding hands, laughing, even a caricature of me nearly spilling my coffee on the first day we met. "I wanted to, capture everything," he said softly, "so that even when things get messy, we can look back and remember how it started. How us." I blinked back tears, my throat tight. "Chandler, it's amazing. I don't know what to say." "Say you'll keep it," he whispered, tucking my hand into his. "Say you'll remember us." "I will," I said, my heart swelling. "I promise." The seasons changed, and with them, our bond deepened. Autumn brought cool, crisp air and golden leaves that lined our favorite walking paths. Winter came with its quiet snowfalls, and we spent evenings curled together under blankets, talking about dreams, fears, and plans for a future neither of us dared to fully articulate. I realized then that love with Chandler wasn't just about passion. It was about patience, understanding, and choosing each other every day. But life, as always, has its moments of testing. It was during a late-night shoot for one of Chandler's short films. We were filming on the city streets, empty and wet from a recent rain. The scene required me to run across the street while Chandler filmed from a distance. It was supposed to be simple, controlled, safe. I didn't see the car until it was too late. Time slowed, heart pounding, screaming inside myself. And then, Chandler. He had dashed forward, grabbing my arm and pulling me back just as the car skidded past. My legs went weak, and I collapsed into his chest, shaking uncontrollably. "You scared me," I whispered, my voice trembling. "I've got you," he said firmly, holding me tight. Always. That night, lying in his apartment, my hands still shaking, I realized something crucial. Love wasn't about avoiding danger. It was about knowing that someone would stand by you when the storm hit, when fear pressed its weight onto your chest. Chandler had become my anchor, and I his. After that incident, our bond grew stronger, but we also learned the importance of honesty, of communication. We shared more than we ever had before, not just the happy, safe parts, but the moments of vulnerability that required trust. We spoke about fears of losing each other, of inadequacy, of the ways life could be unfair. Every conversation brought us closer, weaving a fabric of trust that no external force could unravel. Valentine's Day approached, and Chandler had planned a surprise. He led me to the rooftop, the place where so many of our quiet, precious moments had occurred. The city skyline glittered in the distance, and fairy lights hung from the edges of the railing, reflecting in his warm, smiling eyes. "I wanted to do this here," he said, holding my hand. "Because it's where we've shared so much. Because it's ours." I looked around, heart swelling. "Chandler, this is perfect." He took a deep breath, and for a moment, the world seemed to pause. "Finian, from the moment you borrowed my power outlet, I knew something about you was different. Something I needed. Something I couldn't let go. You showed up, even when life was messy. Even when my past tried to claw back into the present. You stayed. And I love you. Truly, completely, without question." Tears pricked my eyes. "Chandler, I love you too. More than I can ever say." He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "Then let's make this official. Let's face everything together, no matter what comes." I nodded, feeling my heart expand with certainty. "Yes, together." He leaned in, and we kissed, slow, deep, full of everything we had built, everything we had survived. The city lights sparkled around us, the breeze carrying the scent of possibility and the promise of countless mornings and nights yet to come. That night, as we lay on the rooftop afterward, hands intertwined, I reflected on how far we had come. From a simple act, borrowing a power outlet, to this moment where love had transformed us both. I realized that sometimes fate works in strange, unpredictable ways. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't warn you. But when it strikes, it can change the course of your life forever. Chandler shifted slightly, resting his head on my shoulder. You know, he murmured, I never thought someone like you would choose me. And yet, here you are. I smiled, pressing my forehead to his. And you never thought someone like me would stay. But here I am. Always. We stayed like that until the stars disappeared and the first rays of sunlight painted the city in gold. In those quiet, shared moments, I understood something vital. Love isn't just about passion or drama. It's about consistency, about showing up, about being a safe harbor in a world that's constantly shifting. Chandler had become my harbor, and I his. And that, I realized, was the greatest gift fate could have given me. Months turned into a year. We moved in together, creating a small apartment filled with laughter, art, movies, and love notes left in random places. Friends and family celebrated with us. And even Evan became a distant memory, a shadow from a past that had shaped Chandler but no longer held him captive. One evening, Chandler and I sat by the window, watching a rainstorm patter against the glass. He held my hand, thumb brushing gently over mine, and said, Finian, I can't imagine life without you now. You've changed everything. You've made me believe in us, in love. I squeezed his hand, feeling the weight and warmth of truth in his words. And you've shown me what it means to be seen, truly seen. I can't imagine my life without you either. We kissed softly, the rain singing a quiet lullaby. And in that moment, I realized that love wasn't always dramatic or stormy. Sometimes it was quiet. Sometimes it was mundane. Sometimes it was simply showing up for each other, day after day, moment after moment. Our story, which had begun with a dying phone and a borrowed outlet, had grown into something much larger. It was messy, yes. Full of challenges, yes. But it was ours. Completely and entirely ours. And as we sat together, rain outside and hearts full, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. No matter what the world threw at us, we would face it together. Because love, real love, wasn't about perfection. It was about choosing each other, over and over, even when life was inconvenient, even when it was scary, even when fate tried to test us. And I would choose Chandler every single time for the rest of my life.